Dr. Anthony Fauci declined to answer questions before a Senate committee on the COVID-19 pandemic, invoking his Fifth Amendment rights. Fauci said he was acting on advice from his attorney and criticized Senator Rand Paul, who chairs the committee, for targeting him politically. The hearing comes after the release of Fauci's diary entries from the pandemic era, which have reignited debate over the government's response and the virus's origins. More than 25 weeks after the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, investigators say they remain hopeful the case will be solved. The Pima County Sheriff says detectives are reviewing large amounts of DNA, video, and digital evidence as they continue searching for answers. Elon Musk has launched a new financial service on his X social media platform.
The tech billionaire announced the launch of X Money, which will provide banking and financial services for X Premium and Premium Plus subscribers. X Money is offering peer-to-peer payments and money transfers on X, as well as a deposit account insured by the FDIC. Subscribers can also receive a Visa debit card known as an X card for ATM withdrawals and in-person transactions. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
It's officially Jimothy Summer in Seattle.
The Seattle City Council presented an official proclamation in the raccoon's honor to commemorate what's being dubbed Jimothy Summer. The move came after Governor Bob Ferguson proclaimed Jimothy as the Washingtonian of the day on Thursday. The deformed raccoon has been seen scurrying around the Seattle suburb of Ballard lately, and videos of Jimothy have captured the attention of millions. Unlike a typical raccoon, Jimothy has an extra short neck, likely caused by a condition known as short spine syndrome. I'm Mark Mayfield.
From America's News Network, USA Radio News.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven. You can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted. It works. It's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Senator John Fetterman criticizes fellow Democrats over support for a controversial candidate and party divisions.
While appearing on CNBC, Democratic Senator John Fetterman took aim at members of his own party over support for a controversial candidate, Michigan U.S. senatorial candidate Abdul El Sayed, accusing some Democrats of ignoring serious allegations.
This guy is really the Pontiac Plattner, and now he's really running to be the head of our emerging pro-Hamas wing here in the party.
Fetterman says the party must hold its members accountable and defend their values. Anthony Lucero, USA Radio News.
Audio recordings of former President Joe Biden's conversations with a ghostwriter are now public following a legal battle.
The Justice Department released a portion of the Biden tapes following a review. In 2024, Special Prosecutor Robert Hur declined to press charges, writing that Biden was a sympathetic elderly man with a poor memory. The Heritage Foundation sued to make the recordings public and won. Biden fought to keep them private, but withdrew his appeal last week. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
A Wisconsin brewery known for controversial anti-Trump social media posts is fighting the state's decision to revoke its alcohol permits. State officials say the action stems from alleged licensing and tax violations involving beer shipments and not the brewery's political speech. The owner denies wrongdoing and says he'll appeal before the August 4th deadline. I'm Ron Warner, USA Radio News.
You can help put vets to work by donating your car, truck, or van. Your donation will directly support programs to help vets find jobs or even start their own business. Donate today for fast, free pickup of your vehicle. Call 800-209-4580 for 24-hour response. Call 800-209-4580. That's 800-209-4580.
Dependable Lock Service is your source for replacement car keys, custom safes from Liberty Safe, and so many more lock and key services. With over 30 years of experience in lock and key industry, there's nothing Dependable Lock Service can't do for you. Whether you're looking for duplicate automotive chip keys, rekeying commercial and residential locks, or custom safe building, we've got you covered. Call 603-886-0559. Nashua's dependable lock services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The sky's not the limit, it's just the beginning. I'm Ed Mullen from Nashua Aerial Advertising. There's no better way to advertise your business and or message than high in the sky. How can you make your advertising budget work for you? By putting your ads up where they'll stand out. The sky is an uncluttered, impressive venue. You can put your message over a region or location to target your desired demographic. Put your ads where they're needed. We provide coverage over communities through Merrimack Valley, Greater Nashua, Manchester, Lowell, and points throughout South Central New Hampshire and North Central Mass. Summertime beaches, sporting events, races, fairs, and festivals are all ready-made for banner telling. For more information, please visit us online at NashuaAerialAdvertising.com. And remember, the sky's not the limit, it's just the beginning.
Tired of wondering where your money really goes? At Mammoth Nation, we built what was missing. The America First Marketplace. Every brand we feature is 100% American owned and operated, rigorously vetted for their values and committed to supporting our Constitution, law enforcement, and the American dream. When you shop with us, your dollar stays in the neighborhood, supporting families, veterans, and charities like Folds of Honor. No more sending your hard-earned money overseas to the companies that don't respect you here. Your dollar reflects your values. Your dollar, your values. Your America. Join Mammoth Nation today and be part of building a patriot economy by going to TruckersUnitedForFreedom.com affiliate page and hit that link. American built, America strong. Mammoth Nation.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Crawford.
All right. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Common Sense Conservatives. If it is Wednesday night right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM, it is the Common Sense Conservatives. I'm Todd McKinley in Northeast Tennessee, joined by my co-host, Colonel Chris White in South Africa somewhere, and John Grosvenor in the studio. Let's go to you, Colonel. How are you in South Africa today?
Hey, Todd, how's it going? It's 1 a.m. I'm a little bit sleepy here, doing my best to stay with us. I'm in Orania, which is located in the Northern Cape. It's a town that's been in the news over the past several years because it's a settlement that was created by Afrikaners for Afrikaners. Gets a lot of news attention, most of it unwarranted and unfair, but a lovely place. I mean, I felt like I was back in America. I walk around the streets and there's kids in the streets playing, so you got to follow the speed limit, which is pretty slow, about 30 miles an hour. Kids in the streets, there's no walls, no razor wire, no alarms. People leave their cars unlocked. You can leave your wallet on the table and it'll be there when you come back. It's really unlike the rest of South Africa. They've built a community here. When I drive around the neighborhood, everybody waves like I did back home in rural Ohio back in the day. And when you walk, you wave to people and say hello. It's like going back in time in some respects, but it's quite lovely. It's of course wintertime here, so just below freezing last night, but I'm still walking around in shorts.
Wow. So what's the daytime temperature there like? You said below freezing at night. What are we looking at the daytime?
Well, in this part of the country, it gets a bit warmer during the daytime, and I'd say it was in the 70s, low 70s, high 60s, which is rather nice.
Yeah, that seems like a nice winter. I want that. I don't mind that at all. John, how's things in Nashua? It looks like you got a little rain back there. Is that some wet streets I see?
It has been giving us a tremendous amount of rain yesterday and today. Absolutely been enjoying the cooler weather, like Chris, enjoying the cooler weather with the rain, though. Chris, it sounds like you're enjoying yourself in a state like Florida, but not in Florida. You know what I'm saying? He has to go to South Africa to enjoy the temperatures of Florida.
Right.
Well, it is a desert, semi-desert. At least I'm right on the edge of the Orange River, which is the largest river in South Africa. It's pretty large. And this community has built a pipeline from the river for its municipal water supply and also for agricultural. They have a lot of pecan trees here. They export pecans, and so they've made the desert bloom. It's surprisingly nice. I had never been here. I knew all about the place, but I kind of expected to see something in the middle of the desert, which it is. But it's not an oasis, but it's quite lovely.
See that? They probably make pecan pie, right? I mean, just like the South.
I'm sure they do have pecan pie, but they've got something called rusk. It's kind of like sweebak, the stuff that we feed the kids. But South Africans love this stuff. It's like hard bread, so you better make sure your dentures are good.
Right. Chompers, yeah, right. So we have our guests there by chance in the queue there, John?
We do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to
in.
bring in Christopher J. Allen. Christopher J. Allen is a veterans advocate, a retired Army Sergeant Major. For more than 3 decades, he served military and veterans communities through suicide prevention, primary prevention, resilience building, and leadership development. His journey spans the U.S. Navy, the South Carolina National Guard, and the National Guard Bureau, where he served and supported programs in strength and readiness, connection, and prevention environments for service members, families, and the civilian workforce. Chris, or Sergeant Major, welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives. How are you, sir?
Doing great. How are y'all doing?
Pretty good, sir. So tell everybody a little bit about your background, your military service, and what got you into this type of advocacy.
Right. So, I joined the Navy back in the 1900s, back in 1988, and did 6 years active duty. Went to the Mediterranean, came back after I got out of active duty. I did 2 years in active reserves with the Navy, and then I took a 10-year break. So from 96 to 06. I was just living the civilian life. But between those times, 9/11 happened.
Right.
And so after 9/11, it just really weighed on me, what decision, to make. Eventually, I joined the Army National Guard in 2006, and I retired just last year. So 19 years in the Army National Guard. Went to Iraq in 2011, came back in 2012. Like you said, I served up in D.C. for 3 years with National Guard Bureau, in their Warrior Resilience and Fitness Division. Got to see what other states were doing and territories were doing as far as resiliency and suicide prevention and whatnot. So, yeah, I've seen the progression from the 80s, 90s, all the way up to, 2026 on what we're doing to strengthen resiliency and bring down suicide in the military and in our veteran community. So as I've already retired from the military side. I still work for the government for another couple of years, but in this transition time for me personally is, and I've talked about this,
Right.
suicide is, to say it's a huge, issue is an understatement. We lose about 50,000 Americans to suicide every year. At least 6,000 of those every year are veterans. And we don't have, we make up less than 1% of our population. So
Right.
the numbers just are not, jiving. And it's not just about the numbers, obviously. One is one too many. One is the person who died by suicide and their family and their friends, their units, their fellow service members. It affects deeply many people in America when we lose a veteran to suicide and a service member to suicide. So that's what I'm doing now. You and I talked when we were in Tennessee.
Right.
And yeah, so that's my mission now as I transition from the military, from government service into the civilian world. That's my mission, is to, as much as possible, turn the tide on veteran suicide.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to do what we like to do when we have guests, is turn it over to the Colonel. He'll go first, and we'll just kind of round robin from that point. Colonel, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, sure. I noticed, Sergeant Major, that your organization is based in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. It's about 15 minutes from my house, and I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with it. Is it a question of it's not something that's well advertised, or is it you guys just kind of work in the background?
So I volunteer. You're talking about American Association for Suicidology. So I volunteer.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
Organization. And so their mailing address is Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. That's where our CEO lives. So, but we operate all across the country. So they survive the 98 call centers. So that is, you know, we're up here 98, but we've had suicide prevention lifelines since way before that. So they are one of the main certifiers of those call centers. That's one of the organizations.
Yeah, I tell you what, we're having a little hard time hearing you. If you could check your messages, I gave you a phone number. If you could call in the phone number, I think we're having a little bad connection here. It's really staticky. So if you could call in on that number, I think it might be a little bit better, because whenever you were talking, it was really cutting out a lot there, and I really hate that.
Well, it faded right out. We couldn't hear him at all. Yeah.
Right. So this is a very important message. So
no, I was gonna say, is it just me in South Africa that can't hear that?
Well, the weird part is Chris, you're crackling a little bit too. Then he started crackling. I thought maybe it was something on my end. I was trying to play with stuff.
Right. Yeah. So I gave him the number there, so he should be able to call in there. I think John's reaching for the number. For the folks who are listening, a little bit of technical difficulties. Of course, that's what happens whenever you use technology. Sometimes you have difficulties, but guess what? We persevere, we work through it, we overcome. And here in just 2 seconds, he's going to be right on the line, be able to hear, no problem. For the radio audience, it's not going to be any issue. But for the viewing audience who are seeing us on the screen on the various platforms that we stream it on, obviously you can see us, and it is an issue. But John, you have him on there?
His line is open.
All right. Yes. Sorry about that, Sergeant Major. Could you
repeat
basically what you just said?
No, absolutely. So I was just saying that the organization you're talking about in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, is the American Association of Suicidology. It's one of the organizations that I volunteer with. And so it's based out of, the mailing address is Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, because that's where our CEO lives. So I volunteer, I meet with them once a month, and then we have an annual conference that we just had in St. Louis. Next year is going to be in Dallas. But what the American Association of Suicidology, many people in the audience may not know that name, but if you know anything about 988, there's over 200 call centers nationwide, and the American Association of Suicidology, they're the ones that credential those call centers to make sure that that's a viable number and center nationwide. So yeah, that's just one of the organizations I volunteer with.
That's good.
All right, that's very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, you served in active service and then the National Guard. I'm curious about that. I was active duty from 83 to 87, went back to university, was in the Ohio National Guard for a couple of years before I went back in the Army in 89 and retired in 2019. And I have to tell you, talk about resiliency, that's an alien word from my experience when I was in the National Guard back in the 1980s. We never talked about suicide or suicide prevention. In the active component, we talked about it, but it was the cursory mandatory training. To me, that wasn't something that the Department of Defense ever really took seriously until after we were in Iraq the second time after 2003. Is that experience you had, or is it something you saw before that? I'm interested because I didn't see it in the Guard, and I didn't see it in the active component until, like I say, until after Iraq the second time around.
So, what I'm about to say is it's just my opinion. But, in the 80s, we were, or at least whenever I served, that was during the Cold War, towards the end of the Cold War. And when we went to Iraq, obviously we hadn't deployed forces of those numbers in a long time. And so whenever people were coming back from that war, and then, eventually going into Afghanistan, the numbers, and again, we talked about numbers a little bit earlier, the numbers really started screaming that we had to do something. It's not just the numbers of suicides that we've had, which was not sustainable to lose that many veterans each year, but also the other effects, the other mental health issues, prior post-traumatic stress was a huge thing. I mean, we've called it different things over the years. We've called it shell shock. We've called it, Gulf War syndrome. We've called it different things. But at the end of the day, when we deploy service members, men and women, into combat, we are going to have casualties. We're going to have people, we're going to have moral injury. We're going to have folks who cannot come to terms with going, right from combat, back into civilian society. It's not an easy transition at all. And so in my opinion, the numbers just could not be ignored. I don't know how much really they were actively ignored or not, but everyone, was under the realization that something had to be done. So we've made a lot of strides in the last 2 or 3 decades in suicide prevention and in resiliency. But we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go.
Well, you mentioned that. In fact, the numbers are quite shockingly high for the loss of veterans that takes place. And I think the society at large doesn't realize that it's a shockingly overrepresentation among those who take their lives are veterans. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of things that contribute to it. We go through quite a bit. Isolation, the stress, the things you see in combat. And then you come back and you're expected to just walk back into society, hug your spouse, kiss your kids, pet your dog, and go back to your normal life. That's not an easy thing. You just alluded to that.
No. And I don't want to be overly dramatic, but if we were losing 6,000 active duty service members every year to combat, I feel there would be an outrage in America. Mm-hmm. And not to make light of it, but once somebody leaves service, sometimes by choice, they go into the background, but also, I know we do a lot, but there's a lot of things that we don't do, and a lot of things that we could do that would make life easier for our transitioning service members that maybe we just don't think about. But if we were losing 6,000 service members to combat every year, so I'll give you for example. So when we first went into Iraq, our Humvees, whenever they would go over an IED, an improvised explosive device, they would be torn up. And so they up-armored the Humvees to make the passengers more safe during these explosions. In my opinion, we're not up-armoring our service members when we send them into combat. And then when they come back with the after effects of combat, we're surprised. And I know I'm being facetious, but we act surprised, like, why is there a problem? I think another part of the problem is when the average American thinks of a veteran, they think of, an older, gentleman on the street in a fatigue jacket, mumbling to themselves, arguing with themselves. But in reality, a lot of our veterans are 20-something-year-olds that have seen more combat than their predecessors a lot of times. And yet when they go back into society, they might be working at a fast food place, or they might be working at a law firm as a young lawyer, or they may be, somewhere else in society. But when society looks at them, all they see is a 20-something or a young 30-year-old. And then when that same person, when that young adult is late to work, aggressive at work, argumentative at work, argumentative and aggressive with their family, what do we do with that person? What do we do with that veteran? We throw them in jail. We charge them. We throw them in jail. We fire them. We don't rehabilitate them. When we don't give them the grace that they absolutely deserve for raising their arm to the square and going over and fighting the nation's wars, overseas. Now that's just my opinion. And I'm not saying that people do it, consciously, because I do truly feel, if I talk to anybody, in America, and I ask them, are you concerned about our veterans? Absolutely, they're going to say yes. So a lot of what happens is just, not in the regular conscious mind. But the numbers don't lie. And so we absolutely have to do something.
Well, those are actually, I think, very insightful points to, the behavior of people. It may be outside the norm, and the folks who hire them or interact with them after their service may not realize it because they may not have known them before that and see their difference there. I like the analogy you come up there with up-armoring, ourselves from a mental standpoint. In that first Gulf War, I put sandbags under my seat. My head was banging against the top of the canvas on a Humvee as I bounced around the battlefield because I was worried about IEDs, and which we really didn't have an issue then, but also the droplets of DPCIM, the little bomblets, because they were laying on the battlefield unexploded ordnance. So we rode around those plastic aluminum Humvees, and a lot of lives were put at risk. I find it very interesting. But, I think that in some respects, we have to blame our own services. A guest on our program, a former candidate for Senate in New Hampshire, Brigadier General Don Bolduc, was one of the brave leaders who came out after 12 tours in Afghanistan and talked about openly about post-traumatic stress disorder because he was suffering from it. An incredible leader, a great man, and the Army kneecapped. He was never put above that, despite warranting promotion. I think he was punished because he, I guess, in the minds of, this is my analysis, in the minds of leadership, he showed weakness, which I don't think is weakness. I think it takes courage to tell people that a warrior was suffering from that and still was able to do his job. And, it really, and I'll say this on air, it really pisses me off the way that the military has treated things like mental illness and post-traumatic stress disorder. It's something that I think in a major way contributes to people taking their lives. Do you think that's on the mark? Or
with all due respect for every leader that I've had over me, whenever I came in, the folks that were training me were from the Vietnam era. And so, we're not going to debate on this, time right now, but obviously they saw very horrible things in war. And so whenever they're training the next generation, they're looking through that lens. And so the recruiters aren't going to say that. The posters aren't going to say that. The military is not going to say that. But that's the fact of the matter. Because of how we're operating right now, we're sending folks, in my opinion, unprepared when they go into combat. Let's look at it a different way. Let's say this is a corporation, the XYZ Corporation, and you are hiring people and you have hundreds of thousands of members in your organization. And when they retire or whenever they leave the company or they retire, and from that population of retirees and people who have served, who have worked in your company, you're having 6,000 people die by suicide every year. How long would it take for OSHA to open up an investigation on why are people from the XYZ Corporation dying by suicide in such large numbers? Now, I'm not professing that I have the answers to everything, but these are things that I think about whenever I try to apply some amount of reason to this very unreasonable thing that's happening. If it was happening in any other way, then there would be outrage. But because of how it's happening, because they're already out of service, sometimes, in fact, a lot of times when people leave service, they don't even talk about their military service anymore. You don't even know they're a veteran. Even whenever they pass away, you might not know that they're a veteran. So there's things that we have to be held accountable for, whether it's today or tomorrow, but we've gone 2+ decades doing what we've always done. Something has to change.
No, I can certainly understand that. And not speaking about things. No, certainly, I do speak about things in the Army. It's become part of my my online personality. I guess a lot of people glommed onto it, so it comes up. But having served in combat the first time in Gulf War, my first combat tour, although it was brief, I never even discussed it once after leaving the Saudi Peninsula and coming home. It was 6 years later before I even mentioned that. It was only because a colleague asked me a question about where I was at in that time frame. But it's not something that weighed heavily on me, but I get the point. I didn't talk about that. But the thing about this is that now you serve in the Navy and also in the Army Guard, as I recall you said. The thing about this is that it can't be a bumper sticker. In the Army for far too long, we have mandatory training. You get training against sexual harassment, and you get training for suicide prevention awareness. But it's far too often it's a bumper sticker. Whenever I was in a position as a leader, I didn't take those topics as bumper stickers. It wasn't something that we did for annual training. Yes, we did that, but it's also something that occasionally I talk to my troops and my staff about. I either talk to them one-on-one or occasionally I talk to the group as a whole and discuss these things. I mean, I think that if you want to deal with those issues, which are very real issues, including sexual sexual assault and sexual harassment in the military, as well as suicide prevention. It's something that you have to make people aware of more frequently rather than just, check the block with annual training. I don't know where the Army is at today. I've been out now for 6 years, but I still think that those were bumper sticker things that we just kind of did because we had to, annual training. I didn't take it that way. I always took it as something that should be part of our discussion quite frequently. Not every day, but certainly frequently. People should have it foremost in their mind that this is something that as a leader or as a soldier, you need to be aware of to help prevent. Any thoughts on that?
So you're right. I mean, it is basically a bumper sticker topic. And you talk about annual training, and you were around the same time I was in. And it's not just one thing that they do during annual training, right? It's a whole list of briefs that you're given. Suicide prevention being one of them, sexual assault prevention being another, drug and alcohol prevention, the whole list, anti-terrorism, the whole list of training. So it gets lost, in my opinion. So it's just a blip on the radar once a year. If I, had a magic wand, it would be part of our culture. And the only way it's going to get part of our culture is if you put it into a regulation and make it mandatory year-round training. We don't go through basic training and learn marksmanship one time and say, you know what, you're good. We'll see you in 20 years. It's a constant part of our training. And depending on what your MO is, depending on what your job is in the military, any branch or any service, training is part of it throughout your career. Resiliency and suicide prevention, in my opinion, we could run drills, and they don't take a lot of time. There's plenty of white space. There's plenty of open time in a training schedule, active duty or reserve component, where you could mingle in a drill. One drill could be, someone did not show up for formation, and you find them and they're struggling with thoughts of suicide. What do you do? And then you actually walk through the steps. The whole from the bottom of the organization to the top of the organization, you would run drills through that. And again, like you said, I'm not talking about doing it every day, but the basic skills that we have in the military, the basic warrior tasks that we train on, resiliency and suicide prevention and sexual assault prevention, while we're talking, have to be part of the regular ingrained conversation. Because if you keep treating it as a side subject, it's just not going to stay in the brain. That's not how a human learns. A human learns through repetition. And if you want them to be proficient at the job that you want them to do when we send them overseas, with a little bit of extra effort, I'm talking little, and it wouldn't even cost anything. Maybe the cost of the ink to put on paper, to put it into a regulation, that's all it would cost to mainstream it into all branches, all services, to prepare our service members, not just while they're in, but also definitely while they transition out, in my opinion.
No, I think there's good thoughts on that. Going back to the numbers here, the number of veterans is rapidly declining in America because a huge percentage of our veterans were were World War II era veterans and Korea War veterans who unfortunately are passing away. Just a few years ago, there were 23 million veterans living in the U.S. Then it was down to 18 million just a couple years ago. And now the Census Bureau says there's just 15.7 million veterans, 29% of whom are 75 years or older. Those would be Vietnam era veterans. And when they pass from this age over the next decade, the number of us living veterans is probably going to drop down to around 12 or 13 million. When you look at in that context of just under 16 million veterans, and you talk about 6,000 suicides in that cohort, and the population at large is 340 million. So 325 million other people account for the 44,000. It's shockingly high, the numbers. I don't think people are even cognizant of just how big a risk veterans are at for suicide. And I think it's something that society needs to be better informed about. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And, like you said, that number 6,000 has stuck out in my brain for the exact very reason that you mentioned. No matter what population size of veterans that we've had, even as it has shrunk, you would think that maybe even the 6,000 would shrink, but it's not. And so, and if you do the math, I mean, we're talking over 100,000 service members, men and women, over the last 20 years that have died by suicide. Nobody should die by suicide, but it's just way out of proportion to our average population in America. And so, and again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not, somebody who can tell you exactly what needs to happen. All I'm saying is it's going to take more than one organization. It's going to take more than the VA. It's going to take more than the military. It's going to take everyone. And we could do that. I mean, we've done it in world wars. Whenever we have to come together as a country and fight an enemy, we can absolutely take care of the enemy. In my opinion, the enemy in 2026 is suicide among our veterans.
I think it's a fair point. And the numbers you talk about, if you compare the last 20 years with the Vietnam War, we have roughly twice as many service members or veterans who committed suicide over that 20-year period as died in the roughly decade that we spent in Vietnam. So the numbers work out to about the same number of suicides as we had combat deaths in Vietnam during that war, which is a war in which society turned against the American military because of what the politicians did there and where they put us. It's. I mean, I don't mean to harp on the numbers, Sergeant Major, but it's heartbreaking.
Well, it is heartbreaking, and don't get me wrong. Suicide is a hard topic. I mean, it was a hard. It was an invisible topic in the '80s. When we lost folks to suicide in the '80s, but we wouldn't find out right away. We would find out later on, really kind of just through the grapevine, through the rumor mill that somebody died by suicide or not. And so the elevation of the conversation has dramatically increased, but by no means is it an easy conversation to have. And there's no easy way out of this. There's no easy way to build 100 ships. There's no easy way to build 1,000 planes, but so it's not going to be easy to go out and find and help the 6,000 plus service members that are dying every year. And on top of that, you're looking for a population of hurting individuals that are hiding in plain sight, because you cannot look at somebody. There's no diagnostic, there's no x-ray, there's no blood test that you can do on a human being to say this person is at risk for suicide. So it's going to take both the person who's hurting, whether it's through, post-traumatic stress, whether it's anxiety disorders, whether it's moral injury. It's going to take the people who are hurting to reach out, and it's going to take the population to reach in and make that connection and save as many lives as we can.
Absolutely. I think that's true. So before I turn it over to Todd, I want to say that Todd has unfortunately a personal connection to this, having lost a dear friend, and he wrote a book about that, about the experience. For me, tragically, I dealt with this already at the age of 9, suicide, or at least a suicide attempt, which was a pretty horrific experience for me to experience as a child, to go through that. And so I've unfortunately been aware of this throughout my life. And having spent 36 years in the Army, obviously it's a topic that I've come across, sadly, far too often. How did you find yourself getting involved in this, and what's your motivation that drives you to try to make a difference in this issue?
We don't have enough time in the day to go into the full story, but I will tell you, in 2012, I lost 3 friends to combat. But over the years, I've lost dozens of friends in the military and veterans to suicide. So I can't tell you the exact day, but between 2012, whenever I lost those buddies in combat, to somewhere around 2016, whenever I started recognizing the number of veterans that were dying by suicide, I realized something had to change. And so professionally, I switched over to the suicide prevention program for the government. And since then, I've taken that work professionally and taken it into my private life to make as much of a change as I can with the time that I'm given on this earth, and then try to bring as many people on board as possible. So what motivates me is the hope. Whenever we're talking on this program about this, in the 80s, we would have never done that. So what gives me hope is that we're having this conversation and that there are people out there that want to do more. We just have to motivate them and bring them together to fight this enemy.
Well, I really appreciate your thoughts on that, and thank you for your service in uniform and your continued service to the country and what you do now. Todd, let me hand it off to you.
All right. Thanks, Colonel. Great questions. I'm going to turn it over to John, let him ask a few questions, and I'll wrap it up toward the end of the hour here. John, what questions you may have for the Sergeant Major?
Yeah, let's see. This isn't really you guys probably better qualified to ask these questions than I am because you're so much more experienced. However, a lot of people, to my understanding, are prone to suicide, not just simply from the horrific things they may see in warfare or combat or experience or have happened to them. Also, people from military service, do they not have a hard time acclimating back into civilized life? And is this a problem because they feel like they don't have a sense of belonging?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, when we're in the military, even people that might not like, being in the military, maybe they complain about being in the military. But one thing that most people will tell you is that they appreciated the purpose and structure that the military gives them. And the buddies that they have to their left and to their right. When you transition, almost immediately for a lot of folks, even myself, I mean, I just retired last year. And so I miss the people that I served with. And I am out in a community that you can do what you want. And sometimes that's a very scary thing to throw onto a service member who's had a structured life, whether it's a 2-year, 4-year, or 20-year or more service to the country. To be able to go out into the world and have no structure is a shock to the system. And especially, I mean, we lose men and women to suicide, but in our culture, men, especially military men, are expected to live a persona that I'm okay, that I am a provider, that I am, someone who has things under control. And so there's still a stigma for saying that I need help. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but so in my opinion, it's the lack of structure and the lack of people to your left and right that you've spent so many years with that really overnight, if you're active duty, once you retire, you come off post. In the National Guard, it's not quite the same thing as far as that's concerned, but you're not going to drill with your buddies anymore. Whenever they deploy on the next mission, you're not going to be there. And there's some real struggles that go through somebody's mind when things like that happen, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Aren't there community involvements for this? Where don't they have groups where these guys feel a little bit displaced and they can go meet up with fellow veterans? I mean, we do have VFW and things like that, I understand. I don't know what role they may play if somebody is feeling saddened or down or vulnerable at the time, but I know most men don't really, men in general, we men don't like to express any vulnerability at all.
Right.
And I think you keyed up on it pretty hard about, or pretty accurate about the fact that military veterans are trained that way. You don't want to show weakness because, hey, man, I'm a soldier. Soldiers aren't weak. But I'd imagine there's got to be groups that people can belong to and where they can get that kind of support without actually have to openly express it. Is that true, or is it very difficult for them to find?
The one that I have the most that I'm most familiar with is the American Legion. I mean, I've also been to the VFW. I'm a member of that as well. But, in the American Legion, we were just having this conversation last month. How do we bring the younger veterans into this community? Because without having some sort of community and a community that understands, where this person's coming from, they're going to struggle. But if we can get them into these organizations like the American Legion and become part of programs like Be the One, Be the One is American Legion's way of getting after suicide prevention. That's how we do it. Now, it's not just the formal organizations. You could go into, any kind of breakfast restaurant and see maybe 2, 5, or a dozen, veterans sitting in a corner, talking about, their experiences in the military. So it doesn't always have to be a formal organization, but I'm a huge advocate for finding somewhere a group of people that you can go to, that you can have the honest conversation where people are speaking your same language and understand your same struggle because they were there, they did that. That, in my opinion, is what our service members need.
Absolutely. So now, a lot of people aren't really receptive to it, right? You may walking down the street, there may be somebody there, but you're not picking up on the cues. I'd imagine family members and friends are the people that are going to pick up on cues the quickest. What do you think, in your experience, are what somebody like myself should be looking for?
Well, so whenever you think of suicide prevention, you think about somebody who's going through thoughts of suicide. The science shows us that, somebody withdrawing from their family and friends, somebody who, they don't want to socialize anymore, they don't want to be a part of things, sometimes they don't want to go to work. But a lot of times what happens is when you're struggling like that, instead of showing those type of signs, you show signs of aggression. You show signs of not wanting to be, a part of your work community or your family community, which in my opinion is the same thing. The aggression that they show to people around them is another form of withdrawal, because if they can create a persona where people don't want to be around, then it's people walking away from them, and then instead of them walking away from their people, if that makes sense. And what we do in society with aggressive, non-compliant people is we let them go be by themselves instead of, in the Be the One campaign for American Legion, go up to them, have the conversation with them. Maybe not when they're in the middle of an angry fit, but, when everything's quiet down, go and be the one person that will go up to them. It's like, look, I've noticed that you're frustrated. I've noticed that you're angry. This is not your normal way of dealing with people. Tell me what's going on that's causing you to have these type of behavior changes. Just that simple way of asking the question, letting them know that you notice them, that something is happening with them, will naturally, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times will lend itself to a conversation that will let them open up in a safe place with you as being that safe person, that they can start talking. And when they start talking, their language, what they do, their body language is going to maybe trigger a thought or a gut feeling that maybe this person is thinking about suicide. And when that happens, don't let that gut feeling go away. Ask the question. Because of these behavior changes, I care about you. I want to know what's going on. Are you thinking about suicide? I know that seems like a very simple thing to do, but that will lead to the next part of the conversation. If they say, yes, I am thinking about suicide, that's when you definitely don't leave them alone. You make sure that you can talk through what has brought them to that point. Suicide is a symptom, right? We've talked about suicide for several minutes now. Suicide is a symptom. It's a symptom of something is broken. The system is broken. The person is broken. Something is broke down in the chain. And if you let the person express what's going on in their lives, they can usually articulate what has happened in the system and in their life that's brought them to the point where they feel suicide is the best answer for what they're going through. So it is the thing, but it's a symptom of something deeper that's happening inside of them. And I'm not saying that you have to be the person's counselor and their primary source of mental health. You just need to be the one person that's willing to have an honest conversation. And really, by you having the conversation, it's going to mean that you keep your mouth shut as much as possible and let the person talk. We have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. Let the person who's struggling talk. And more times than not, they will tell you what they need to stay safe from suicide.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to go back to what you said about when they're in an angry mood. I think you can diffuse that situation by adjusting your body language and reflecting to them, listen, I'm not here to fight with you. I'd rather help you. And sometimes you diffuse the situation when you engage that way. And in that when they're in that mood, they may actually calm down a little bit and be more willing to talk coming out of that mood. Just suggestion for anybody listening. That's my opinion anyway. But I need to turn it over to Todd because we're going to run out of time here and he won't get a question in otherwise.
No, these were great questions. Folks, you're listening to the Common Sense Conservatives right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. And of course, if you have an internet connection, you can listen to us on any number of social media platforms or the internet at wsmn.live. We're joined by Christopher Allen, retired Sergeant Major, talking about suicide prevention, suicide awareness. A lot of great stuff here. Speaking of Be the One, you were at our convention this past June, actually just a month ago yesterday. We were at convention, and I appreciate you being there. We talked about Be the One. You were, I think, in a number of the different meetings that you were there, also talking about military sexual assault trauma and things like that. Is there some of those things that come up that, military sexual assault trauma, which is one of those taboo subjects that we don't really get into? Is that one of those leading causes of suicide in a lot of the demographics that are killing themselves?
So it is, and I know we're short on time, but I'll give you this example. So whenever a sexual assault happens, and it happens tens of thousands of times every year, today it's still happening. Right. When it happens in a unit, it divides the unit, right? Half says it was not a sexual assault, half says that it was. So it divides the unit. What it also does is whenever we take something as serious as sexual assault, and unfortunately, our prosecution rate for sexual assault in the military is extremely low, like it's in the single digits.
Yeah.
And so whenever you have that in an environment, and then right next to that person, you have somebody else who's struggling with mental health. If they're seeing that something as serious as sexual assault is not being taken seriously, they're also thinking, well, then my issue is not as serious as sexual assault, so they're definitely not going to take my situation seriously. Right. So it goes back to, the persona of being tough, suck it up, drive on, that type of mentality. We've come a long way, but we still have that. I mean, it's still part of the persona of being a military member. And also on top of that, with a sexual assault, you have the person who's been sexually assaulted having to go right back to work and work shoulder to shoulder with the person who assaulted them. That would never be allowed in a civilian company at all. And so it's just, we don't have enough time. There's many factors that go into somebody thinking about suicide, and definitely sexual assault trauma in the military is one of the huge factors.
Right. What are a few things that you've seen or that you do or you teach that can destigmatize some of these things, like seeking help for PTS, traumatic brain injury, military sexual assault, all the different factors that lead to someone committing suicide? What are some things that you can do to get somebody to get help? Some things that you can say and do, and what are some of those resources that are out there? I know you touched on the 988, the crisis hotline. What are some of the resources as well?
So you have the VA. I know people, are on the fence, either you love them or you hate them, right. But link in with the VA and get those resources that you earned. They're not given to you. They're not free. You paid for them. So link up with the VA, link in with other veteran communities, have the conversation. But I will tell you, we're so short on time. The number one thing that we could do, and so now I'm speaking to my military colleagues, all branches, all services, be the one in your unit whether you don't have to be the commander or the first sergeant
Either one.
to speak up for mental health, for suicide prevention, for sexual assault prevention. Be that voice. Don't be a bystander. Speak up.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. And so 988, if you're a veteran,
Spot on.
press 1. What are some other resources out there that people can go online, if you will, and look up some of these things? Also, people that are, maybe have somebody in their life that is a veteran that maybe is on the fence, if you will, maybe is acting differently. Maybe they can go teach themselves, if you will, a few things that they can recognize or alert themselves to, somebody's mental health change, if you will.
So what I would do, I would contact Wounded Warrior Project. I would contact organizations like American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, organizations like NAMI, organizations like Mental Health America. Also, a simple search on the internet in your own area. If you type in suicide prevention for veterans near me, I promise you're going to have a list of resources that when you start calling around, there will people that, one, will speak your language, and two, will help you get the care that you need immediately. And like you said, 988 and then #1 for veterans. Do that today. If you're having thoughts of suicide right now and you're listening to this, do that right now. That's the best decision you can make today.
Absolutely. And I think we maybe have a minute left. Any final thoughts, Sergeant Major, before we go to our break?
Just thank you for continuing this conversation. This would not have happened back in the 80s. We're in 2026. Thank you for bringing this conversation, to your listeners, to the viewers, and just keep this conversation going. And as you've heard something that's touched you, keep spreading that message in your local areas. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sergeant Major. We're going to have you back on again for sure. Important topic that we need to keep talking about, keep, getting into the weeds on, because I don't think you can go too far in the weeds on this topic for sure. Again,
Amen.
Final thoughts, Sergeant Major, and we'll play it off with the music here in a second.
Just, be the one. Take care of the people next to you. Ask the tough questions.
There we go. Thank you, Sergeant Major, for being here. And of course, Colonel Chris Wyatt, for the viewers and listeners, I think he's going to drop off, get some rest. He's got a busy schedule tomorrow. Next hour, we got, at the top of the hour, we got Representative John Crawford. He represents Tennessee's first state house district. He's running for re-election. We're going to talk a little bit about what he's been doing down in Nashville, and of course, his re-election campaign, why he should be re-elected, etc. You're not going to want to miss that at the top of the hour. That'll be John and I kind of getting in the weeds on that. Colonel, what's going on with you tomorrow before the music plays us off?
Well, at 8 o'clock in about 6 hours, I've got a radio appearance on a local radio station, and then I'm doing an interview with somebody at 9 o'clock, and a busy day tomorrow, and I've got a barbecue, or as they say here in South Africa, bride tomorrow.
There you go, folks. We'll be right back after the top of the hour. Stick around. A commercial break. It'll take us up to about 8:03. See you guys in a minute.
Broadcasting from 200 Main Street in the beautiful and historic Masonic Building. This is WSMN 1590 AM and WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Streaming live at wsmn.live.
USA Radio News, I'm Anthony Lucero. President Trump says the U.S. will respond after Iran launched ballistic missiles at American forces in the Middle East. U.S. Central Command says every missile was intercepted. Trump said Iran knows it's coming and promised a strong response while expressing hope diplomacy can prevent further escalation. President Trump is staying out of the debate over a possible Senate contempt vote against Dr. Anthony Fauci.
I disagreed with him on a lot. I would have had to close down the whole country if I listened to him. I went the Federalist way, which is basically let the governors decide.
Senator Rand Paul says the Homeland Security Committee will consider a contempt resolution next week after Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment 106 times during a COVID-19 hearing.
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
Trump said Fauci didn't do him any favors, but declined to further comment. Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh says the U.S. economy remains strong after the central bank voted to leave interest rates unchanged.
The economy is showing impressive resilience. Even with recent shocks, the trends are positive and reveal solid growth.
Warsh says the job growth is keeping pace with the workforce, unemployment has changed little, and the decision passed by a 9-3 vote. The next rate announcement is expected in mid-September. A major recall involving over 500,000 Ford SUVs.
The owners of more than 560,000 Ford Bronco and Bronco Raptors are being notified about a safety recall tied to a possible engine compartment fire. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says the wiring in 2021 through 26 models may short circuit. If that occurs, drivers may first get a dashboard alert or see smoke coming out of the vents before flames appear on the passenger side of the engine compartment. Ford says only about 1% of the recalled vehicles are affected and that it will install new covers on the wiring at no cost. I'm Daria Albinger.
From America's News Network, USA Radio News.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven. You can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted. It works. It's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE 40. 855-SHARE-40.
Tired of wondering where your money really goes? At Mammoth Nation, we built what was missing. The America First Marketplace. Every brand we feature is 100% American owned and operated, rigorously vetted for their values and committed to supporting our Constitution, law enforcement, and the American dream. When you shop with us, your dollar stays in the neighborhood, supporting families, veterans, and charities like Folds of Honor. No more sending your hard-earned money overseas to the companies that don't respect you here. Your dollar reflects your values. Your dollar, your values. Your America. Join Mammoth Nation today and be part of building a patriot economy by going to truckersunitedforfreedom.com affiliate page and hit that link. American built, America strong. Mammoth Nation.
Hi, Nashua. I'm Perry Cataldo from Choice Benefit Services, your local insurance agent that has dedicated himself to all the Medicare plans in New Hampshire. Whether you're just turning 65, new to Medicare, or already have a plan, I'll explain all your Medicare options and extra benefits that you hear so much about. I ensure you're getting all you're entitled to and all that you deserve. Nashua, don't get fooled again this year. Call Perry Cataldo at 603-461-5550. That's 603-461-5550. Or visit me online at cbsnh.com. That's cbsnh.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And remember, health is wealth.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago, servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
All right. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Common Sense Conservatives right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. Of course, you can listen to us online at wsmn.live and a number of social media platforms. And of course, you can download us as a a podcast. We stream around the world. Colonel Chris Wyatt, for those of you who are watching, has dropped off. He is in South Africa, doing a meet and greet over there with some of our fans, and of course, a lot of his fans. That's for sure. He's got a big following over there. We're going to be joined here in just a moment by John Crawford, as I mentioned just before the break. He represents Tennessee's 1st House District. He's running for re-election. We're going to discuss his campaign, and of course, what he's done down in Nashville the past few years. Is he standing by, John, by chance?
Absolutely.
There we go. Hey, John, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, loud and clear. Glad you're here. Of course, we had a good conversation in the first hour with retired Sergeant Major Christopher Allen, talking about suicide prevention, suicide awareness, and things like that. Some of the things we've talked about actually, whenever I came down to Nashville over the past few years, advocating for these things in Nashville. But we won't get into that this hour. We want to talk about you and your campaign, and of course what you're doing in Nashville. For the listeners out there who maybe don't know, and of course the folks here who are listening in Northeast Tennessee, and of course streaming us, tell them a little bit about your background real quick, and we'll get into a little bit of Q&A after that.
Well, I've been a Sullivan County resident all my life, and I have served some time at the local level at the county commission for 12 years, and I run one time for this seat for the 1st House District and lost by 17 votes, and I didn't know that I would ever go through that again, but it did come back up, and I was elected. I think it's 2016 when I started. But I learned a lot at the local level, how unfunded mandates and just different laws and resolutions that sent down from the state to our local governments, and they have no money to send with it. So it really puts a burden on our local governments. And so that was one thing that I really wanted to work on. So I started working on that and trying to climb the ladder. And I am now the full committee chair for state and local government. So, and I have a great team. They understand what unfunded mandates does to our community. And we look at everything carefully and hope that we are doing the right things. We got great communications back with the city of Bristol, the city of Kingsport, city of Bluff City, and Sullivan County. So we get to see the legislation that's coming before it ever gets calendared, and we talk to them, because everything that Nashville and Memphis may bring, it may be good for them, but it may be terrible for Bristol or Kingsport. And so it's good to have that ability to see it and try to work on it to make it tolerable for our communities.
Roger that. Yeah. And being on the local community or on that committee, I mean, we've seen a big change up in Northeast Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee used to end in Knoxville. That's what our legislature used to think, and our governors. And of course, now that we're a supermajority Republican state and you're in the right committees, we've had a lot of attention paid to us up this way. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. For the last probably 15 years, even before I got there, they were working on trying to change that, because it is true. We didn't get our fair share in Northeast Tennessee. It always went to Middle Tennessee, West Tennessee, and if it did come to East Tennessee, it went to Knoxville, and we never seen that. But our Northeast Tennessee delegation has worked hard. We've worked together. We're much stronger together than we are when we're trying to do things ourselves. And we have put ourselves in some really good positions and higher ups. Gary Hicks from Hawkins County is now the finance chairman for the whole General Assembly. And I serve on that committee along with Representative Tim Hicks from Washington County. And of course, I'm the chairman of state and local government. And when Bud Halsey decided to retire, at that time, he was the chairman over appropriations. So we finally got ourselves into these higher up positions and stronger positions. And we have seen a major increase over the last 3 to 4 years on what Northeast Tennessee is getting. So we don't want to lose what we worked so hard to gain. and it's very possible if I was to get beat, we would have a freshman in that position. And Bud decided to retire. We will have a freshman in that position, and we've also got a senator who's served one General Assembly, 2 years he's served, and I don't know that we would have those positions and that credibility if that happened. So we sure
Right.
don't want to lose, or because we continue to gain respect down there, and
Absolutely.
so that
Yeah, and of course, sending you back down there for another term or two is basically you're going to be the senior mentor, if you will, to the new folks that are down there, and we need that. And because if not, it's easy for Nashville to turn off that spigot and turn its attention elsewhere, like you just talked about Nashville and Memphis for sure. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care where you go. Most of the time, the youngest person that comes on the least amount of time, they have to pay their dues. They have to earn the respect of their colleagues, and that takes some time. That's one advantage for me over my opponent is they have no experience at the state level. They've got 4 years experience at the local level, which is great. But
Right.
there's a huge difference between state government and local governments. And I've got 10 years experience. I've worked myself up the ladder. Most members of the General Assembly serve on 3 or 4 committees, and I serve on 11. And that's
Wow.
simply because I have gained the respect of the speaker, and I've gained the respect of my colleagues, and they know that I will work hard and I will show up. And so I'm very proud of that. I don't get a whole lot of rest, but that being said, if I'm down there, I know somebody's working for the citizens up here in Northeast Tennessee.
Right,
So
absolutely. And you mentioned the speaker, Cameron Sexton. He was up here, just Monday, I think it was, doing a town hall with you. I believe he's endorsed you. What are his thoughts on this race, if you will, and of course, wanting to bring you back down there?
well, he did. He come up. We had a great meeting. Had open questions from people from the audience, and I think it went over very well. But he did come up here for that reason and to help me in this campaign because he doesn't want to lose a senior member of the General Assembly. He does not want to lose a full committee chairman who has done a good job over the last 10 years because
Right.
it's very possible that if I wasn't there, it may be somebody who's not really got the experience at the local and the state level. So it's very, very important to him to do what he can to help me, and
Right.
he's done that.
Right. And of course, Governor Lee, our current governor, who's outgoing, he's term limited, he's endorsed you. How important is it for you to obviously to go back down there with a new governor, a fresh governor who's never served as a chief executive? Because you got to think about it. If it's Marsha Blackburn, she's never been as an executive. John Rose, nor Monty Fritz. Those 3 individuals are, I guess, essentially the front runners. It's not going to be a Democrat. It's going to be one of those 3 at the end of the day. And of course, we probably know which one it's going to be. But how important it is for you to be able to talk with them, have that good relationship with the next governor.
Well, with the relationship that I have with Governor Lee at this time, I mean, I can go to his office and hand deliver legislation and sit down and talk to him about it. And that's big for Northeast Tennessee.
Yes.
We've got several members, Timothy Hill, Gary Hicks, these guys who also have that opportunity, who work closely with Governor Lee. So that's kind of the reason we're seeing a lot more in Northeast Tennessee. But as far as the new governor comes in, it's going to be a learning curve for either of the 3. And if you go by the polls and you see what's going, there's a very strong possibility that we will have the first female governor in the state ever. And if you look at her record in the Senate and her relationship with President Trump, it could be a benefit as far as maybe Trump would send more stuff back to the state, to her, and she send it to us in the General Assembly, because we can run it better here in the General Assembly, Tennessee, than the federal government ever could. And so that kind of is a point that I have thought about. As far as John Rose, he's been in my office too. Super smart man. I mean,
Right.
you don't start two IT and computer companies and not have that ability. We're
Right.
very blessed, really, in Tennessee, because I don't think we could go wrong really with any of them.
Right.
So we're lucky there. But John's usually a man of his word, that I can tell. I'm not around him a whole lot, but the times we have worked together, he's always been a man of his word, and he's a hard worker. And I have that relationship with Marcia at this point, like I do with Governor Lee. Now, whether that would continue, we don't know yet. We think we understand how things is going to affect the state of Tennessee. Well, a new governor can come in there and just everything we've worked for and got in place, she could change any of it, or he could change any of it. So
True.
we have to wait to see, who goes into that office, and whoever it is, the General Assembly will rally, and we'll get behind them and support them 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And supporting somebody 100% doesn't mean you have to agree on everything 100%. But if they're trying to do the right thing generally, and of course, living in a republic, everybody has a vote. Us as citizens has votes on who who vote to represent us. Of course, you go down there, and of course, you take that and do the best for us. And of course, we may disagree with you at times, but guess what? You're trying to put the best foot forward and make the best decisions on our behalf. And that's why we've elected you to do that. And I think we've gotten a lot out of you. We need a little bit more out of you at this point. Before I turn it over to John, I know he's going to probably have some trucking questions. And we've gotten some good parking in the States for truckers over the past several years with you down there. But why are a couple of reasons why people maybe should reelect you? And of course, I know the reasons, but if you don't mind, maybe articulate that a little bit.
Yeah, well, the biggest reason is I've got the experience, as far as at the state level. The number one thing that makes me more valuable, being in the General Assembly, is simply the 10 years I've been there. I have worked really hard, and my colleagues know that, and I've built those relationships with them. I've had members come in my office with a bill, and they want to know, hey, what do you think about this? Is this good? Can I get you to sign on to it? And you have to be honest with these people, and you tell them, look, the amount of money, this is going to die in finance. It's not going anywhere. And sometimes that's caused some problems. But for the most part, I'm pretty well respected. And anything dealing with state agencies, anything dealing with local governments, counties and cities, I've got a pretty good grasp on, and I have a great team. I have the largest committee in the General Assembly, and
I didn't know that.
it's made up of a lot of people that have served locally, and so it really gives us an advantage to look at things and see what's going to work and what's not going to work. Of course, we think we understand how legislation is going to affect. Let's say I did last year. I had a charter change for the city of Bristol, and so I went through it, everything, started presenting it in committees. Thought I had thought of everything, but I got a few questions that I didn't know how it was going to affect it, or it had a loophole in it. So I ended up having to go back, sit down with my research analyst and my lawyer. We went through it. We called the city of Bristol, got them involved with the city manager and the mayor, and even got the Board of Education to look at it from their standpoint. Did we make everybody happy? Probably not, but we got it to a place to where everybody felt comfortable with it. And so by doing that, that shows how I have the relationship with my other members. There's times I've been in committee and have a simple bill, and I walk in there and I don't even have to say a word. If I bring that bill in there and they've looked at it, a lot of times they will pass that bill just off of my reputation and the
Right.
kind of bills I bring.
Wow.
I tell my committee all the time, you do not have to be passing legislation to do your job as a representative. You are
Right.
representing the people back home. We've got a stack of laws that probably 4 foot high, and we can't enforce them all. So we don't need to be creating more laws. We can't enforce the ones that we've got. So
Right.
that's an advantage over my opponent is I simply have done this. I have a proven track record. I have a voting record that I challenge anyone to go look at. Make sure my morals and values line up with yours, and you can see how I've voted on important issues.
Right.
And if you got questions, I'm willing to answer any questions you may have. So
Right. Well, let's turn it over to John we got about 8 minutes with you. I know you got to break off at 8:30. John, do you have any questions for Representative Crawford?
Well, you did bring up trucking, and since
I did.
Representative Crawford does live in a high travel area, I believe your district must be on 81, maybe close to where 81 and 80 and 40 meet. So a lot goes on right there in your district as far as truck travel goes. How are the parking? First of all, are you on a transportation committee? You said you're on 11 committees, and that's pretty impressive. One of them transportation?
No, I don't serve on transportation, but one of my best friends in the General Assembly is the chairman, the full committee chair of transportation, which is Dan Howe. So he keeps me pretty well informed on trucking issues and highway issues. So I might be able to answer your question.
Oh, okay. I was just kind of curious on the parking issues within yours. We have some top-ranking issues in the trucking industry, and one of them is parking. And it's kind of ironic because we're held accountable to an hours of service rules. That's really not practical. It's a one-size-fits-all rule, and then they don't allow us enough parking areas to be able to abide by such rules. It's incredibly obtuse. So I'm kind of curious, in your district, do you have adequate truck parking? And if not, what can truck drivers in your region do to appeal to the state of Tennessee in order to get the amount of truck parking they need to satisfy the demand?
Well, we have truck parking. We have several, I don't know what those are called. It doesn't have the actual welcome centers and stuff, but just parking for truckers to be able to fill their logs out and to sleep. And those we've got probably 4 of those within the Northeast Tennessee boundaries. We have our welcome centers, and but in our situation, our first welcome center, which is right there next to right before you get to Greenville and stuff, has been shut down for over a year and a half. And they had some water problems there, so they just blocked it off. And the truckers did not have the ability to go there and park, so they started parking out on the interstate in the safety lanes at that welcome center. So it has caused some problems. We did put, I want to say, $20 million into redoing the welcome centers and the parking areas. So it's definitely on somebody's radar.
Yep.
And Pat Marsh, I don't know if you know him, he is the, start to say deputy speaker, but he's the speaker pro tem, and he owns a trucking company. And so he gets us and lets us know, hey, this is going to work or this is not going to work. And so y'all need to back up and punt. And so having him there who owns a trucking company definitely makes a difference on how we react to, making sure we have adequate parking.
And you having that relationship, you can advocate on behalf of truckers from this district and other districts as well. I think that's a great thing to have.
Absolutely. And I wish, if it was just 20, 25 years ago, we had a strong presence of independent truckers. Now we're starting to see there's not very many independent truckers, and they're driving for corporations and Walmart and this kind of stuff. If the gas went over $5.50 per diesel back in 25 years ago, those guys would shut down everything. They would just say, we're not going to pay that, and you need to get it right and make it right. But we don't have that big of a presence anymore to demand that some of that stuff. I mean, diesel is a byproduct of gasoline.
Sure.
And we should never be paying more for diesel than we are gasoline. And it's killing our trucking companies. I mean, they have to pass that on to the customer. And so that's why we're seeing everything higher.
So you bring that up, and the issue with diesel being so expensive is the cost of refinement. So increasing the standards for lower sulfur diesel and things like that cause more refinement. And a lot of refineries didn't want to outfit themselves to do this. So we have now where they refine diesel to a certain standard, but not a standard they can sell it in the United States. So they'll ship it out to a foreign country that doesn't have the same standard. So that's what increases the demand for diesel and the cost for diesel here in the United States. It doesn't just affect trucking, anybody that owns a diesel motor. So regarding such a matter, not just trucking, how does the state of Tennessee, what do you handle it when you're having these burdens of over-regulations within the federal government and how they're impacting, because you're talking about unfunded mandates and such like that. A lot of that rolls down from the federal government. So how are y'all doing over there with that?
Well, I mean, we get stuff all the time that they send and mandate that we do that they do not send the money with. Thank goodness we've been very conservative as far as with our budgets and things. And so we're just right now, we are basically our gas tax isn't covering, what we need to keep our roads up. And so we've got to look at a new funding source that we have to do to make sure our roads are taken care of, and that refinement, those type things, I know have a lot of regulations, and they have to do that. Whereas other countries, everybody's supposed to be playing on the same page when it comes to the EPA and all this kind of stuff. But the United States is definitely doing what the law says. Our other countries aren't doing that. And so that keeps putting us behind.
Right.
It does.
We got about, sorry, John, we got about 2 minutes and John's going to have to step away, but John, real quick, tell everybody where they could find you, website, et cetera, and talk about early voting and election day, which is next week.
Early voting is going on now in Sullivan County. We have 3 locations. We have Bristol at the Slater Center, in Blumpville at the county offices, and in Kingsport, the Civic Auditorium. And it goes till, I want to say 9 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon during the weekday. And then on Saturday, it's 9 to 12. Excuse me. And so if you want to early vote, we're starting to run out of time. Please get out and vote. We in Tennessee do not do a good job in getting people out. And that's got to change as well. In Sullivan County, I think last election, we had 7% of the population that got out and voted. And there's been too many people fought and bled and died for us to have that privilege for it not to be used. It does amaze me. I'm sitting out there trying to meet people, answer questions, and you see these guys get out with their veteran hats on, and they have to get their cane out or a walker, but they're going there, they're going to freaking vote.
Yes, sir.
And then you got able-bodied people who just have no concern for it that don't, and it's just simply not right.
There you go. Well, I appreciate your time here. I know we only had you for a half hour, but State Representative John Crawford, folks, go out and vote for him. I personally endorsed him, so full disclosure. I didn't want to lean the audience one way or the other while you were talking, but I have personally endorsed you. Voted for you today, by the way.
Thank you.
Actually our next mayor's birthday, Zane Vanover, so he's been on the show as well. So, but I appreciate you. You're welcome here anytime after the election and over the next couple of years while you're still back in Nashville.
Sounds good. I sure appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. God bless you, sir. God bless your family as well.
Hoorah.
All right, there we go. That's State Representative John Crawford, folks. Tennessee's first House district, not to be confused with the U.S. House district, which it falls within inside of it, by the way, which is kind of cool. So I live within the first state House district and also the first U.S. House district in the state. Number one, baby. You know what I'm saying? I love it. John, how are you doing? How are you doing? What's been going on since last week?
I'm doing. I got to apologize to folks for the audio tonight. It is something going on with our platform here. Even our background flag has stopped waving. I don't know why. So
I see
going
that.
on the
Yeah.
platform. So yeah. So much apologies for that, because I know Chris came in, he was crackly. We had our first guest came in, he was crackly.
Right.
We brought him in by phone and that cleared that up. And John here was a little better, but still this platform did not do us well tonight. And it's
Yeah,
not
I
the
don't know.
studio.
No, it's not.
I'm talking
It's
about
not.
here on the computer system.
Yeah. It is what it is. Sometimes, tech doesn't work the way you want it to, especially, whenever you really need it to work, it never works. In my experience, 20 years in the military working in communications, it's like it works through training. It works through, your testing and everything. And as soon as you need to use it, it stops working. Something glitches out. And I've noticed you've glitched a few times here watching the screen here for those who are watching on the streaming platforms, whether it's YouTube or wherever you're watching. Yeah, interesting though.
I've seen that myself. It'll like the whole screen will flash and kind of glitch.
Right.
And so usually it's you, Todd. You're usually the guy out there in the South that has poor internet. We thought poorly of these Southerners
not
thought you couldn't
anymore.
afford internet.
I used to, but I got a new router and everything. So since then, everything's
Oh, that
working.
makes a difference. Yes,
Absolutely.
you get a new router, and your modem's in your router. Nowadays,
Yep,
it's not in your
one,
computer. So that makes a huge difference. Updates, upgrades are great.
So anyway, did you watch anything today with regards to Anthony Fauci? Do you see any of the clips by chance?
Oh, what a waste of space he is. So no, I did not to answer your question, but I am aware that he had pled the fifth. He doesn't want to have to answer anything. So
Right.
But very
Yeah.
honorable man. But I also did hear, I know you'll probably get into it, is his journal was somewhat exposed.
Right. Yeah. And of course, I've not read his journal or anything like that, but apparently it's, very self-congratulatory, look at me, I'm hanging out with all these people, I have access to money, I have access to power. People are praising me, oh, I'm on the news, I'm popular, it's like, oh, look at, I'm a big to-do at this point. I don't know how it got out there, but hey, it's out there. And of course,
a man of his age that has that kind of ego and
Right.
reflection upon himself is kind of ridiculous to me.
Right.
But the thing of it is, he's also in his journal talking about how he was going to these parties and how nobody had to wear the mask at these parties while the rest of us were being, what's the word? Guilt tripped and forced. Some ways we were being enforced. Some places were forced, mostly
Right.
governors and towns, but the federal government was doing it to the military and things that they had access and control to. They were forcing them to mask up and vaccinate.
Right. Yeah. Ridiculous for sure. And of course, here's a guy who made something like, and it was reported, I guess, in the Senate, one of the senators said $12 million, just in that short period of time. He goes from making a government salary to all of a sudden 12 million, and he's angling. There's emails that are being released. How, of course, he used Gmail. He used one of his subordinates to use his Gmail to keep it out of his office, to keep it out of the official email, the official record. Ways to skirt rules, regulations, and of course to get patents, get his name on patents, and of course to make a lot of money that way. Very sinister
So
stuff.
he used his
that way.
position to make money, is what you're telling
Yeah.
me. To
In a big
crookedly,
way.
yeah,
In a big
make
way.
money.
And of course, Rand Paul kicked his attorney out. I had a row with him. I love that. I kicked him out. The Capitol Police escorted his attorney out. Because, by the way, and here's the thing. He pleaded the fifth 111 times or 106 times, as the news pointed out at the top of the hour. It's between there. It's one is one too many, because he had already been pardoned by President Joe Biden. And according to the law, if you've been pardoned and Congress calls you to testify, you have to openly testify, because you can't be prosecuted for it anyway. So you have to testify. And of course, he violated the law and the Constitution by pleading the fifth. You know what? Because it's funny is he thinks he's exercising his Fifth Amendment rights, but it doesn't apply once you've already been pardoned for that crime.
I got to question that, and the reason why I got to question that is because people are trying to overrule that pardon. So he is kind of, in a way, not because I have any favor towards Anthony Fauci.
No, I can,
but
see,
I have
I can
to
see
question that mindset, because if they're trying to overturn it, then anything he says, will that be used against him later on? And that seems kind of like putting him in jeopardy, or even a violation of his rights if they do.
Right. Yeah, I can kind of see that, but you know, the Senate, I think they agreed, hey, anything you say is not going to be used against you. So they all also said that, and they also said, hey, we're going to honor the immunity agreement.
Can they guarantee?
You know?
Oh, they do have an immunity agreement, so he cannot be
Right.
prosecuted because of the Senate terms. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So he's been pardoned and they have immunity agreement. So why didn't you?
He had no
testify? I don't-
excuses. Yeah, he
don't
had no
understand
excuses.
So he violated the law 111 times there, basically, and I hope they get him for that.
Well, he is married, and his wife did work for the NIH. Does it incriminate her? And therefore, if it does, he can plead the fifth.
Sure. Yeah. Of course, a husband and wife can't be made to testify against one another anyway.
Right. Right.
That's
So,
in the
like, if he
Constitution.
incriminates her in his testimony, then he could probably use the fifth on that one. That might be an avenue. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, obviously, so I can't really give legal advice.
Well,
but-
the fifth is essentially for self-incrimination. You know, if you're,
No.
you know, but
well, yeah, it is
Right?
self-incriminate. Technically,
self-incrimination.
constitutionally speaking, it does say self-incrimination. It doesn't say anything about spouses.
And whenever he spoke, you know, a lot of times people will say, you know, on advice of counsel, you know, I'm a plea with Fifth Amendment on or on the grounds that may tend to incriminate myself. That, and of course, he didn't say that. He said, you know, he basically left that part out because he's not going to admit to any crime, of course. But Fauci, I hope he goes down for this for crying out loud. I mean, how many people died in this country? How many people were put out, lost jobs, lost livelihoods, you know, lost businesses, for crying out loud? And we've still not recovered for the most part. No matter what Trump says about the economy, you know, whenever he bloviates about it, we still not recovered from it, because people who lost jobs, livelihoods, you know, businesses, those didn't come back. You know, you're not made whole again.
No. Thomas McKinley here on our Facebook
My brother.
channel. I was gonna say something about that. He says he's trying to avoid perjury, and that's a good point. He may be trying to use the fifth to his favor, erroneously, obviously, to avoid perjuring himself.
Right. That's for sure. So so two guests tonight. You know, I know we the first hour, very important guest. We've had him scheduled since about a month, and of course, Representative Crawford. I've been wanting to get him on the last couple of weeks, and of course, it just worked out tonight. I could get him for 30 minutes. He has some family events he's got to get to. But anyway, great to have him on. What did you think about our two guests tonight?
I enjoyed him very much. We had a really excellent conversation on veteran suicide, and a lot of that really applies to general population as well. A lot was being said about looking out for one another and protecting one another, and what signs of what you're looking for, things like that. Does apply to general population, because it is a problem. I think the ratio is 1.5 veterans to one person in civilian, I guess you might say. So there is a gap there. So obviously there's something going on with veterans that makes it much more risky or concerning as to their vulnerability. I thought he was an excellent guest. I'm looking forward to having him on again, because obviously he's got a lot more to say. So having him on another time would be excellent. And really enjoyed John Crawford. Very insightful man, very obviously a workhorse of a representative. Sounds like he got a good representative there in Tennessee, Todd.
Right, absolutely. You know, and here's the thing. You know, I'm not trying to speak ill of his opponent, because she's not here to defend herself or anything like that. But, you know, one of her complaints is, you know, he's not around. And I'm like, he is around. He's where we need him to be, representing us in Nashville. You know, I get it. You want him to come back and talk to constituents, which he does on a regular basis. But when he's in Nashville, whenever they're in session, that's where you want him to be, working in Nashville. When you're out of session, he comes back, talks to everybody, has any number of updates, has, you know, legislative sessions, gets together with the other legislators that he talked about. And we have, you know, updates, if you will. We have, you know, open forums for the public to go to. So I'm like, I don't understand where that's quite coming from, because he is around.
I gotta ask a question. Now, I've heard that one, and I'm thinking to myself,
right,
is Mr. Crawford available? If I say, John, I'd like to come and have a meeting with you. I got some stuff I want to lay out for you. I want to show this to you. Can you spend an hour with me? Is he available? I'm going to assume you're going to tell me yes. And I'm thinking,
and here,
Nashville
It-
is only what, an hour and a half away from where you live from
no, 4 hours away.
still, if it's only 4 hours away, if I got something important to talk to him about, I can drive 4 hours. I mean, I have
Right.
driven here from Nashua, New Hampshire, all the way down. I was up all day, took a cat nap, got up at 9:30 at night, drove through a snowstorm, all the way down to Washington, D.C. to meet with Ted Cruz.
Right, right.
And then I had to drive back. I almost made it all the way home before I finally gave up and said, no, I'll take a nap. I'm not
Right.
pushing this hard anymore. But if it's important to you, you'll make it happen. That's my point. And
Right.
obviously, he's got a job to do, and his job is in Nashville. So
Right.
I'm just, yeah, you're right. It is a lot further than I'm.
Yeah, and to me that's not really a relevant point because it's not quite true. You know, when he's in Nashville, he should be in Nashville, and he takes everybody's calls, emails. I mean, over the past few years, I've went to him over any number of veterans issues, and you know, some of it, he's like, oh, I'm not aware of it, and you know, he's like, let me do a little reading up, let me talk to some people, and by the time I'm sitting down with him, either in his office or here in the local area. He's like, okay, here's what I found out. Here's what I've got for you. You know, here's what we can do. And we can't really do anything here, but we can do this and this. And we work it out and get some stuff done for people. And that's what I want in a representative, somebody who isn't going to pretend to be the expert on everything, but will do the research, the homework, talk to the right people, or get you connected with an expert to be able to get the question answered. And of course, get something resolved, if you will.
I'm kind of curious if he spends a lot of time in Nashville, but he's from the Knoxville area.
He's from Kingsport, actually, up this way. So he's down in
Kingsport,
Nashville
so further
whenever
than
they're in
Knoxville,
session. Yeah, whenever they're in session, he's down there, which he should be. Whenever they're out of session, guess what? He's here doing constituent work. And of course, you know, the state legislature is not a full-time job. They have to have either be independently wealthy, you know, own a business, which he does. And so he has to come back and actually work his business as well. And so he balances it fairly well, I think. And of course, I'm not saying anybody else couldn't do that as well. But like we talked about, you're going to have a couple of new freshmen from this area going down there. We don't need a third freshman going down there. You know, I think one or two is enough at this point. Let him be the senior person that's going to mentor. And of course, in the next couple of years, whenever he's ready to move on, because he's not going to try to stay down there forever. You know, the other people will be up to speed, and they'll be the elder people down there mentoring the next person that comes in.
Absolutely.
You know,
so does he have a place in Nashville? Is that what he does, or is he?
Yeah, so they give them apartments down there for the legislature. That helps offset stuff because you know they don't get paid a lot of money. It's not a big paycheck. I couldn't tell you how much
like
it is
a stipend.
year.
Or New Hampshire's the same way.
Yeah, basically it amounts to a good per diem, but it only funds you really while you're down there, and not even fully really. So giving you a place to stay not right next to where you work, the House office building and the Senate office building, the Cordell Hall building, I should say, is perfect. So you can just walk there, and of course you can walk to the Capitol, and of course everything's basically on one campus, and it makes sense to have that.
Yeah.
So anyway, what do you? We didn't get to get into it. We didn't get to get into it in the first hour. What do you think about Senator Graham's death? I don't know if we talked about that anytime since he passed away. What are your thoughts about his sister being appointed to the Senate as well?
That was interesting. I don't know. I don't have an opinion one way or the other as far as negative or positive about her being appointed.
Right.
I don't really understand her positions or anything like that. I know it was a request of Trump's, and the governor did it, and you know, he did what was legal, so that's cool. You know, it's all right. So as far as his passing, it was so unexpected. I mean, it was just out of the blue. A lot of people went right to conspiracy theory on it, and even Iran tried to take credit for it, saying they did that. You know, but they're the same numbskulls that are also out there trying to expose Melania Trump's habits so somebody can do the worst of the worst. They're trying to encourage people to do the worst of the worst to our first lady. So no, it was unexpected for everybody. I mean, it was a shocker. Really, it was. I mean, so.
Right, for sure. Also, have you kept up with the Todd Blanche, the acting AG's confirmation to be the full AG, the Attorney General of the U.S. His hearings, and of course, John Cornyn, I think, is going to put a nail in that coffin if if he doesn't get back with him and report to him, I think his nomination may be done for at this point. What do you think?
They didn't want him to begin with, right? Yeah, they're such
Right.
obstructionists in DC right now for anything Trump is attempting to do. And so what I did see something where they canceled a hearing or something today, I think, and
a meeting. Yeah, it was a
basically,
meeting.
yeah, it's not a meeting. So yeah, so basically they're showing some disfavor, I think. I'm not really following it closely or anything, so I'm not
Right.
up to speed on everything, but I did happen to see that they canceled a meeting today on him, and it looks like he may be in jeopardy for getting that position.
Right, absolutely. And of course, we're still at a war with Iran. Don't know what sort of resolution we're going to see there, what's going to happen. I don't see them in the near term just capitulating unless you just kill everybody. I mean,
Well, there was a thing that they wanted Trump to come to the table again. They were like, yeah, we want to try. And then Trump's like, oh no, you know what? I'm not feeling it right now. Well, we'll get to it. And so he blew him off. And I don't know if he did it for effect or if he did because he's really, really busy. I mean, he is the president of the United States of America. He could possibly be very busy. But at the same time, they tried to kill a bunch of our soldiers in Jordan here yesterday. So
Right.
really set Trump off. And so I guess he kind of like started pumping his fist and saying that we'll take him out, we'll annihilate him, or whatever he said. I don't remember the exact details. But,
Right. Well, I think his new mantra, his new saying is a head for an eye. So if you instead of an eye for an eye, if you take out one of our eyes, we're going to take out your head. Basically.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one.
Yeah,
In
I do
fact,
too.
why wait? Why wait? Why give up any eyes? Just take them out.
Right.
Man,
Absolutely.
I've been saying this from the beginning. I have no use for evil people in the world. I have no use or sympathy for those type of people. They've been a rotten group of people, even for their own people. That people that would murder their own people because they spoke up, because they said something. It's like, oh, how dare you? They even went into foreign countries. I don't know how many people realize this, but the IRGC has literally, or Iran has sent people, proxies or other, to foreign countries to kill Jewish people. They sent them to foreign countries to kill dissidents. People that have left Iran and escaped Iran, they have either dragged them back for trial, they dragged them back to kill them, or they killed them on the spot in those foreign countries. These are not people that respect the globe. These are not people that respect their neighbors. They're firing off missiles over here into Qatar and to Saudi Arabia, wherever, Jordan, wherever. This isn't very neighborly of them. These are people that are violating international laws left and right. These are people that have no respect for life. These are people that deserve nothing more to be blown off the face of the earth so we can get a proper government into Iran and get things function again for the people of Iran and for people in the globe.
No, absolutely correct, for sure. Yeah, and of course, what and I know you'll probably say some positives here, but what do you think the job of Pete Hegseth, how he's doing? Or I mean, I could go both ways on a number of things, on him. But what are your general thoughts and observations?
I don't pay a whole lot of attention. It seems like things are going the way they should. As far as I know, he's doing a decent job administrating for the Department. Department of War now, right?
Not legally, but yeah, they call it that.
Yeah, that's what they like to call it anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have an overly strong opinion one way or the other. As far as I can tell, he seems to be doing a good job. I like his attitude towards things. Very aligned with Trump, I think. In fact, wasn't he joking around about how Trump was talking to him or something one time or something? It was kind of like a humorous thing he was doing. I didn't get the whole of it. I didn't get to see it, but I heard about it.
Yeah.
But no, he's kind of a bit of a character. I think he's decisive and willing to stand his ground on matters.
Right, for sure. So, yeah, real quick here. Newsmax is reporting, or Axios. Newsmax is reporting an Axios story. There we go. Give credit where credit is due. It's the title says U.S. conducting airstrikes in Iran as Tehran escalates, talks falter. The U.S. military is conducting airstrikes inside Iran. Axios reported Wednesday, citing sources familiar with the operation. The strikes represent a major escalation as diplomatic efforts with Tehran appear to be unraveling. Axios did not immediately provide details on the target, scope of the strikes, or whether President Donald Trump personally authorized the reported operation. I'm imagine he's well aware of the operation. Whether he is telling them exactly where to hit, is besides the point. He's giving them a go light, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And he agrees with whatever the plan is from the Joint Chiefs and the SecDef or SecWar or whatever. And basically, he's given his approval, essentially. Whether he's, knows every single target at heart is besides the point.
Well,
most people wouldn't, right?
The thing about it is Trump's really not a military strategist. He's not.
Right.
I don't know what his knowledge is entirely, but I don't think he's in depth. And if he's taking advisements from his Joint Chief, that's where Chief of Staff, that's where he needs to be, right? I mean,
Right.
they know best of what he needs to do and how he needs to perform.
Right. Yeah, Dan Kane, or Raising Kane, as they used to call him. But he was actually at the White House during the Bush days when I was there. He was a military aide, and I mean, I didn't work with him directly, but I know exactly who he is. And it's like, if I saw, obviously I see him on TV and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, there he is. But if I saw him in passing in civilian clothes, I'd be like, hey, I know you. I would recognize him. You know what I mean? It's kind of that.
Pick him out of a crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, I could pick him out of a crowd. We may not know each other, like personally, but I could be like, yeah, I was Todd. I did this position, whatever, over in White House Communications. He'd be like, oh yeah, I remember who you are. Yeah, I remember. We would probably remember one another. So anyway, very, very, very smart guy. Funny, actually, intelligent. Just one of those guys you trust when you want to be behind, if you will, and you want out front leading, if you will.
Yeah. Trump speaks very well of him.
Yeah,
he
no,
always has.
Yeah, a great guy, and it's funny, as there's been times whenever and you hear it out of the White House, and of course I was just actually in D.C. Over the weekend. I was stayed at the Watergate. I had a White House function to go to, not actually at the White House, but it was a White House function at the Reagan Building. Talking to some of the people there, some of my national security friends, if you will, and they're talking about he at times tells Trump, hey, this is not a good idea, that I want you want to do this, or if this is your objective, how about we do it this way? And Trump had an idea, and he's like, yeah, let's do it that way, that sounds better. Listen to your general, and he does, and I think that's important.
That's why you delegate a task to somebody.
Right.
You don't delegate it to micromanage it. You delegate it because they're qualified to get the job done. And if you're not willing to listen to those you put in charge of that position, you're going to be in trouble. And so that really shows a good sign of the type of leader Trump is. That's good leadership.
Yeah, and it was refreshing to be able to hear that from somebody I trust. I'm not going to give any names or tell you where they work. We didn't talk about secrets or operational stuff. I just asked, how's the relationship and between them.
You did.
Sometimes he has different relationship. No. So because you hear the stories about he fired this general and that general, and it's like, well, how's the relationship? Because I don't want to see him get fired. And he's like, oh, it's a great relationship. Let me tell you, there's times President Trump comes in there with an idea, he wants to do this, and then the General Kane's like, yeah, I see what you want to do here, but you're not going to do it this way. How about we do it this, and this way? And you'll get to that objective, but it's going to take you a few extra steps. If you do it this way, you're not going to get to the objective the way you want to. It's going to collapse. But basically the basic framework is there, and General Kane helps build it out the rest of the way, which is great. That's a good working relationship.
Was there any conversations about the MOU? Or did you?
I didn't talk about that. No, I didn't talk about that to anybody. The only time I've talked about it is here on the show with you and the Colonel.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that. It seems to me, you can't trust these guys. It's within their own religion. It's okay to lie to the infidels. These guys aren't Muslims, so let's lie to them.
Right, but it's so funny, as the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, it was one of those things, and I called it. I think the Colonel called it. We talked about it. It is one of those things. You're giving away everything and to see if they sign on. And whenever they basically rejected it, it's like, see, they're not serious about anything. We were going to give them hundreds of billions of dollars, all this stuff, perhaps maybe discuss nuclear power down the road, wink and a nod, and they still rejected it. So,
it's a diplomatic strategy, and it's also global. It's not just for between us and them. It's for the whole world to see their position on it.
Right, for sure. And it's kind of refreshing to know that didn't go through, that it didn't become, it wasn't signed, if you will. And it isn't the basis of any sort of a peace agreement at this point, I think.
No, I think Trump signed it. We did.
No, he signed it, but Iran rejected it, I believe. So it's
their representative. I could have sworn it was the next night.
Well, it's not actually being enforced at this point. You know what I mean?
No, it's broken
because they're fighting. So since we went back to fighting, you would have to renegotiate at this point. You can't just say, let's go back to that. that's broken. So that's out
you
the
can
window.
you can go well. You can go back to your original agreement and re-sign and stuff.
Yeah,
I
you'd have to
suppose,
re-agree
but-
on that and sign. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the fact we went back to fighting, that threw that out the window, which we
Yes.
kind of knew that was going to happen. I think.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
it was to be a good show.
Yeah, I don't know if I
for
explained it
people
that
to
well, but
see.
anyway.
No, I think you did fine.
Yeah, so I'm just reading here another Newsmax story here before we get to the last few minutes. Senators weigh option to compel Fauci to testify. Dr. Nancy Fauci's decision to repeatedly invoke the Fifth Amendment before a Senate panel on Wednesday could trigger contempt proceedings, with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky moving to hold the former White House chief medical advisor accountable for refusing to answer questions about the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. And let's see here. Let me go to the second paragraph. The Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, which Paul chairs, will vote August 5th. So August 5th, folks. That's next Wednesday, I believe. Next Wednesday. We'll be live on the air, so we'll know next week whether or not Fauci is actually going to be held into contempt of Congress whenever we go live. Let's fingers crossed on that one. Let's hope he does. I hope he goes down for a long time. Let's take that $12 million away from him and a few dollars more, and toss him in jail for several years and forget about him.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of people out there looking for accountability. They are
right.
That's why we voted for Trump. Was the
Right.
game. And when people didn't see it within the first couple of years here, they got upset because they're like, well, we should be seeing people going to jail by now. And it takes a long time to build
But investigations and of course hearings, things take time. Government doesn't run fast, which is a good thing that it doesn't run too fast, because you think about it. Would you want a government that could convict you for something that maybe you didn't do that quickly? Well, out of expediency? I don't think so. We know Fauci's guilty for sure. And of course we can say that, but at the same time, in a court of law, you still have to prove things and go through a process. And I do appreciate that we do have that. It is a little slow. I get it, but hopefully he is held to account at the end of the day.
We hope so. Marjorie Taylor Greene coming off like a scorned woman or what?
What are your thoughts on her? I think she's right on a few points. I think she's trying to make a name for herself and stay relevant in a lot of other areas.
I think she come out of there. It's kind of like a scorned woman. She come out there. She didn't get what she wanted, so now she's trying to burn the whole thing down. She's like,
I don't want to listen to you if you quit Congress. Stay there. Use that little mini bully pulpit that your office provides. Fight from inside the system. You quit. I don't want to hear from you. You left. Move on.
well, that's what she does. She carries on like, this is so important. I'm going to tell you guys the truth. It's like, you could have done that from your seat in DC. If it was important to you, you would have stayed in DC and finished finished out your term.
Exactly.
Not left your
I agree.
constituents hanging. And then people
could be
well, she's setting herself up to be the next president of the United States.
Oh,
Not like that. She isn't.
Never going to happen. Never going to happen.
No,
never gonna
I
happen.
don't think so.
The next president is probably somebody we don't even think about right just now. Very likely.
No, actually, I think Chris has brought up Rubio a couple of times.
Rubio is a possibility, but I always think that there's always a dark horse out there that all of a sudden arrives on the scene. That's like has done great work and all of a sudden builds a following, and next thing you know, they win a few primaries here and there. They're putting it together and then they're walking in there. It could happen. There could be a dark horse out there. All right, that's it. That's our show, folks. We'll be back next Wednesday right here on WSM 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. Until then, take care and God bless.